Good evening. This is the Carver Finance Committee on Monday, February 22nd, 2021. Would we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to thank Area 58, and I really want to call out a little extra tonight with Area 58. Fran and Fran, the unknown heroes for us, are here at every single one of our meetings, and it's actually been at my request. They've never missed one, and they do a fabulous job. So thank you very much, Fran and Fran, and thank you, Area 58. Public comment, anybody? Seeing nobody running to the microphone. Town Administrator, Finance Director update. Town Administrator, Finance Director update.
Is Rick there, or?
Well, no, we just lassoed him.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Meg, go ahead.
This is why he's an executive. He walks in, sits down, and throws you right under the bus.
Right, delegate.
Well, I mean, I would say that there's not much to update. Expenditures are on target. We don't have any significant deficiencies in any accounts. Our revenues continue to be on target. CARES Act, we still have only received 2 reimbursements, totaling about $236,000, and we've submitted 6. I know we've got quite a few departments who are waiting to hear if certain items have been reimbursed, but we don't know yet. Other than that, I mean, everything is kind of, it's humming along. Again, the message remains that this year is, we're doing better than I think we believed we were going to be at this time.
Revenues are on track?
Yep.
I would just add to Meg's statement that we have about $250,000 in remaining capacity under the CARES Act grant of the allotment that was for Carver. There are some submissions that may or may not be successful. I think you know one of them in particular. The Finance Committee has given some importance to. So it's possible there could be another $100,000 that's not approved, but we have till December 31st. We intentionally held off on some of these proposals and requests because it's a long year. We don't know what's going to happen, as this is almost a day-to-day management of the pandemic. So we at least left some capacity. It doesn't seem like a lot to get through next December, but we've started to say no a lot more, even to some really good people in this town, but that's what you got to do. The only other thing I would add right now is what you don't see anywhere in your budget right now is we do have ongoing negotiations with our DPW union for a successor agreement next year, and we do have negotiations, fairly minor stature with our police union regarding implementation of the requirements of the new Law Enforcement Reform Act. So those are items that aren't probably not going to be substantial, but will probably impact the budget before we're done with the deliberations.
Well, we don't know where the Reform Act is going to take us, so this is ongoing for them too, right?
Yes, there are some
I mean,
specific.
there's talks of body cameras being required and
That's correct.
stuff like that, and it's stuff that we've really advocated for a long time. So it's it's
Shouldn't be a surprise, right? Some of the other items. One in particular has to do with the statement on liability, which we know that's an issue for not just law enforcement but for public officials in general potentially. So those are items that are not substantial but will likely impact the spending plan before we're done with the process. So unless there's any questions.
Good.
With respect to the CARES Act, I'm going to yell because my
okay.
my microphone. With respect to the CARES Act, you mentioned there's about $230,000 has been received and there's $250,000 left to capacity. So what is the total threshold that's been allocated to Carver?
1.7 million.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 6 altogether. I think it's 7 if you include, we had a small one for the VOTEC school. I believe that's the case, Meg. So, but again, that's fairly minor.
So by my very quick and fuzzy math here, that's approximately $1.2 million worth of requests that's still outstanding?
That's correct.
Yeah, for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the process, the I guess audit deliberation process by the county is quite extensive. It's actually 4 phases. Starts with a very in-depth auditing by a consultant. Then it goes to step 2, which is essentially a review of that work. And then ultimately it goes to the treasurer for his review, and then to the county commissioners for a final decision. The real work is done at phase 1 or 2. But as of about 3 weeks ago, they were backed up over 100 applications from throughout the county. And some of those applications are substantial. We have submitted, rather large, like this past one was over $300,000. Some of the communities had submitted very small, small amounts, piecemeal. And my conversation with the county treasurer, Tom O'Brien, that was what I speculated. Are we better off, submitting, more smaller claims? And he said, no, it's not going to save you any time, or not going to hasten the process of getting a check. So we are not alone. There are some towns that who get out of the blocks real early, who have been more successful in getting funding in their pockets, but the funding is coming. We just we don't put it in the bank until we have it. So
Do we have sort of a conservative or a chicken little type perspective or thought process on how much of the $1.2 million may not be granted? Is it all pretty secure?
in my opinion, it's pretty secure. I think there may be, and certainly, Meg, I invite your comments too. I certainly never want to, publicly declare that we've got some speculative claims. We don't. However, there are claims that, as the county treasurer will say, are appropriate and reimbursable in some communities, are not in other communities. It's just depending on, for instance, one of the criteria, it has to be something that wasn't budgeted. There are towns that have budgeted things, and unfortunately for them, that one criteria is gone, so they're not eligible. So, but we have, I suspect, we have, I'm going to guess we have about $150,000 that may be something that may not meet all the criteria, depending on how the county wishes to look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you disagree with that, Meg, or have anything to add?
I don't know. I mean, any of the items that were larger items, just because the larger items create more concern in terms of whether they'll be reimbursed or not. I do feel like every department head has really meticulously documented how it was COVID related. So in some regards, I feel like if anything were to be rejected, I would kind of feel surprised because I feel like everything was very clearly documented as COVID related.
Yeah, because even internally, we haven't just been, the candy store. Internally, we have requested more backup information and more backup information. So hopefully, our, for lack of a better word, our own internal audit before anything even goes to the county is thorough enough that we don't have much risk. But even if we aren't successful with some of those funds, as I mentioned, we have we can't in any way guarantee or suspect that we're going to have more funding coming from the state or federal government. It's possible. I mean, you all read what I read about potential federal aid. I think state and local government is really not the focus of the federal spending, at least in terms of some of the politics. But even if it is, we don't know how that trickles down. We don't know what limitations will be put on any aid that may come to state and federal government, and local government. So we have to presume that 1.7 is all we're going to get. So we're spending and making determinations internally here as if that's all we're going to get.
Is this reimbursement, or is this money that
It's a reimbursement program.
So we've already spent this money,
Yes,
and we're waiting to get reimbursed.
correct. And that's why we're extremely cautious.
Okay,
Extremely cautious, yes.
that's what I thought the case was, so.
Rick, can you tell us some of the stuff that we submitted for?
Well, a lot of it is personal protection equipment, cleaning supplies, unemployment, the town's share of unemployment claims. We have had, a vehicle for the EMS department for COVID response. That's a fairly substantial one. There's some funding for replacing teachers for specifically related to the pandemic. So that's that's a lot of money right there. There's, computers for at home to have people
And
work more.
printers.
I'm sorry?
And printers.
And printers, right, to keep, not to keep people out of the, out of the office, but so that people, town and school officials can work more remotely than they have been historically. So that's, Meg, do you have any other major expenditures that come to your mind? I mean, besides the human resources, cleaning, and equipment?
But those teacher salaries, that would probably
That's the biggest.
That would probably be the area I might have the most concern with, even though the school department did, they documented how it was COVID related, because they did teacher salaries with a portion of benefits, and I'm a little bit worried about that. But that's a good chunk of the school side. It's basically PPE, unemployment, school salaries, just a lot of supplies, a lot of cleaning.
Did you
all that
contact
stuff.
tracing?
I'm sorry, Ken.
Any contact tracing with COVID?
We don't do that, but we do.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
do have our visiting
VNA.
nurses who we pay, we contract with, and we have had to pay more
Yeah.
per contract for services than we otherwise would have. So that's an expense that is
Because I
reimbursed.
believe the amount above your contract you can turn into the CARES Act from the VNA.
So I'm going to say, I'm not sure going forward what those needs are going to be, because they're shifting almost daily and weekly. So we do have some capacity, and we do have, again, some concerns, but minor concerns about some of those things that we have submitted for. But I say, we feel pretty good about them to the extent that they're well vetted internally, but when it gets to the county and their, auditor, consultants, you never know. You never know.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Is there anything else on the report, Meg, on the update?
No, I mean, I think that the big takeaway is that we're better than we thought we would be at this time of year. So that's good news. I mean, you guys already know we have a balanced budget. The revenue forecast, our Old Colony came in maybe about 11,000 less than we projected. State aid is where we expected it to be, a little bit short, but we make up for that with local receipts. I think we're in pretty good shape.
We'll take up Old Colony on March 1st. We just had that meeting. There's a couple of potential glitches, but they don't think there's going to be anything major. So we were the best of all the towns as far as the impact was concerned. So it was a small increase from last year, but we also have 3 more kids than last year, so that's good.
Small increase, but less than what we had projected and built into the
Yes,
budget process.
yes,
So
it
when we
is.
talk about $11,000, that's $11,000 below the estimate we have
That's
for
right.
this year, which is a 5% plug.
So
So
I'm
there's a
gonna-
couple extra dollars there. I mean, I know it's not big money, but I know dealing with some of our,
it was 5%, and I think it came back at like 5.2 or something like that. There's a little bit of just a
right,
small
but
glitch.
we're on the underside. We
Yes,
saved
we are.
about
We are.
$11,000.
We're in
right.
decent shape with
Right.
that. So here comes the $50 question. What happens if, worst-case scenario, the powers that be kick back 50% of what we have outstanding in CARES expectations. Are we committed to what's been spent?
It would have to be
It would have
absorbed
to
in
be.
budgets, but I don't see 50% being kicked
Okay, I'm
out.
just looking for the worst-case scenario, the bomb goes off kind of thing. So I'm just asking, if that were the worst thing that could happen,
Yeah.
I think you
No,
have.
that
to
was
be
your chicken
committed.
little, okay.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
that's part of the concern that all of the cities and towns are dealing with throughout the state. Because yes, you're supposed to spend the money. It would make more sense if you would apply.
Get approved.
Get something eligible, and then you would move forward.
Well, sure.
It would also deal with, a little more effectively with any procurement requirements. It's very difficult.
Seems to me we put all this stuff on the credit card hoping that the CARES Act's going
Yeah.
to pay it off.
Right, and that's why we've been careful. I know there were a number of towns that, right out of the blocks had, $1 million in, of reimbursement requests, and that's dangerous. I know particularly where we didn't get our first in there until July, because we were trying to avoid end of fiscal year issues with closing the books and things like that. But a lot of towns had already been submitted significant amount of money. And I know a lot of towns have had some issues with that. We've been pretty careful, and when we do have some items that we're not too sure about, we at least call and try to get some guidance. Even though there's no guarantees, we do look for some guidance from the county.
Anyone else? Sorry about that.
Well, could I just add something to that, though, too, that the issue there is that if we were to know today, because we have 2 out of the 6 reimbursements that we've received checks for, it would be very helpful to know where we stand with 3, 4, 5, and 6, because if I were to have to reclass it now, departments could probably absorb it, and they would know how to they would know how to plan the rest of the fiscal year around that. But if the county's not going to tell us where we stand with some of those reimbursements until May or June, that's where it becomes a problem.
Yeah, the only thing the county will do is tell you what phase your submission is in. Is it in, what phase of review? And
So
like I
we'll hope
said,
for
when
the
you're
best.
backed up over 100 applications and the review is, as an example, our first request was for approximately $200,000, and that's just a round number, and they kicked out 200, I think it was like $212. So that's how detailed their review is. I mean, if you're getting that detailed on such a large request, imagine what it's like per application, per town. It's pretty intensive, and part of it is because everything they do, the county does, is going to get audited by the federal government. So what they have told me and others throughout the county is that they are presuming to do their own audit, so to speak, right up front, so that when the federal government does its job, there'll be nothing for them. They've already gone through the same process that the federal government would go through, so
We good?
I'm good.
You all set, Meg?
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let's do budget discussions. We have a whole bunch tonight. While you're sitting right there, if you want to just run through the selectmen's real quick, and we have to drag you back up, and then if
actually,
the
I
clerk
will-
would be so patient.
I will pass the floor because Elaine was going to help with that,
Okay.
so there's no
In that
reason-
case, I'll let Elaine stay seated. I'd like to, town clerk, we're gonna have a little discussion over what your wish list is, and I know what that is. To make it easy on a couple of the smaller committees, if you don't mind, can we bring up veterans and then COA? Because those are gonna be pretty easy-pleasy, and we can let them go home and enjoy their evening without dragging it out, so a 5-minute meeting becomes, at 10 o'clock tonight, so. So, with that, how about veterans? Would you like to join us?
Oh, I gotta speak in the microphone?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know that I had to sign up for that.
And so that Kelly can write down your name, speak your name, and we'll
Mark
have that in the
Pineo,
minutes.
P-I-N-E-O.
Here we go. It's pretty basic, straightforward stuff from what I see, Mark. I asked you during the break, some of the members may remember a year ago when we offered to help with the wreaths that were put on the graves. And then I suggested it get built into the budget for the following year because I thought it was respectful and it was something that we should do as a town. And that was put in, but then taken back out, and we have a part-time person that's helping you out now, and you wanted to put that additional funds toward that individual.
Wanted to give her another
to
4 hours.
offer more
which would be
services.
19.
The money in question was $1,300? Was that what it was?
That's what, for the wreaths, yeah.
$1,300 for the wreaths. I kind of like, and this is just me personally, I kind of like to have my cake and eat it too. I think the man should have his $1,300 for his additional part-time person, and I'd still like to see the $1,300 allocated for the wreaths. So we aren't going to change the budget, but if this committee would so vote, when that time comes, I'd like to see that $1,300 put back in, and then perhaps the town administrator and the finance director can kill me later as we try to find that $1,300. Meg's not saying a word.
Well, something would have to be cut.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
we'll figure it out.
If we can't find $1,300, we got bigger problems.
Exactly. So, Mark, this is all pretty straightforward stuff, department salaries,
Yep.
seminar and trainings. We don't see any increases at all, other than the regular salary, and I'm assuming that's coming on to the part-time person that's helping you out.
Correct.
And the department had $1,100 increase there. Everything else is actually 33% decrease on travel, all right?
Yeah, but it's only $250.
Yeah, exactly. So the bottom line is that we're at 235,000, and if we were to increase that $1,300, that would bring us to 236,300. And I certainly will entertain anything from the will of the committee. Anyone want to weigh in on this?
I just have one question. So it looks like Mark's asking for $4,100 for other purchase services, but we're bringing it down to $1,300? Do we know what we're looking?
No, the 4,100, part of that is, the Veterans Department is in what they call a district,
Yeah,
okay? So we're in a district with Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, and Carver, all right? And when that arrangement was made, there was an agreement of a stipend, and that's what that is.
okay. So you need the $4,100? You need
Yeah,
$1,300? No, I think he needs the,
the 1,300 is for the wreaths, the 4,100 is for the district.
okay.
Right. We're voting on we're suggesting what's in the yellow column.
Yeah.
The blue column's the wish list. So again, we go back to the wish list. If money were no object, what would you like to see additionally for your department?
Well, the only thing that we've discussed down there that would be something that I don't know that you could take care of here and now, but there are more and more frequent calls about people who are in emergency situations. Their water heater's gone, the basement's flooded, it goes on and on. In the past, we've been able to hook them up with various organizations that help. Most of those organizations have either gone away or have not been funded. So some kind of discretionary fund that is, and I'm not sure how it would be distributed and how it would be allocated down the road would be very helpful. I'll tell you the story, and I won't keep it, but I had one lady who came in for her monthly benefit check. I handed her a check, and she said, "Oh, thank you, I can eat now." That's the level that these folks are living at. And if I had the ability to give them a $50 gift card if they were in an emergency, that would be tremendously helpful. As far as everything else, we're tight in the tick down there. We got everything we need. We really do. Couldn't be happier.
Should have ended with him, huh?
No, you know, these are, we as a committee, we hear this more and more and more from department heads, that they would like to do more for the public, or like to see their existing personnel get more of a raise or something like that. It never really comes out to be self-serving. It comes out to be, what can I do to make my department better, or what can I do to help out, you know. I think you would be the first one that's come here and said, we're delighted with our current budget, it's perfect the way it is, but we'd like to have, and that's why I like to ask the question, if money were no object. Now, that's something that I think we should look into, and if there's a way to do something with that in the future, I don't see a problem with that, as trying to establish some kind of a something. I know that my son got a call today from the veterans in Middleborough with a gentleman that had no oil in his tank.
Yep.
Can you help us out? So, and that's when the community kicks in and steps up, and this should be something that be automatic. This should come automatically, as far as I'm concerned.
And we have a lot of instances like that. Most of them we've been able to help, but it's become more and more difficult as we've gone on.
Pains me when someone gets the stipend check and they say, now I can eat. You know, I can't relate to that, by God's grace. So,
I just have a question, because I've seen this come up in other places in the past. Can you fill someone's oil tank for them? Or-
What the Department of Massachusetts under Chapter 115, if they're involved in fuel assistance from South Shore Community Action Committee, when that allotment runs out, we're allowed to help them out with their oil or gas for one fill-up, no more than $500.
Okay,
But they have to be on Chapter 115 to get that.
okay.
They have to be eligible for Chapter 115. And they have to file that so that it's complete before April 30th.
I just know I've seen, like, in organizations where we can't fill someone's oil tank because if there had been an explosion or something happened from the fill of the tank, you'd be liable. So instead you would, maybe give a gift card for them to purchase the oil themselves. I didn't know if we had any restrictions with that.
Yeah, like I say, the requests are so varied that it's hard to get a trend, It always surprises me. I had a woman in my office with PTSD who needed an operation for her service dog. You don't get that every day, so it's really hard to anticipate what the emergency is going to be,
Mr. Chairman, Mark and I have talked a couple times, Mark and Lisa, some of the people that come in their door, phone calls they get, some of their issues and problems are related to COVID. And in my conversation with Tom O'Brien, unfortunately, those types of situations are not eligible for reimbursement through the CARES Act. So we can't lay the funds out because we're not going to get reimbursed for them. So we've considered those, at least that are COVID related. And as far as in terms of having funds available, gift cards, I know that it would take some research to deal with that because in general, the Mass General laws are very, very tight and really anti-fraud laws to a great extent. So it's not to cast aspersions.
Well, you need a new car anyway.
But anyway, so that's it's difficult.
It is difficult. It is very difficult. I agree.
What else? I'd take a motion, and it's up to you, whoever the maker of that motion, to include the 1,300 or not.
Are we also voting on the veterans' benefits for $235?
Yeah, the whole
Okay.
package.
So I'll make a motion to approve the veterans' budget for salaries of $41,844, plus the veterans' operating budget of the $4,515 and an additional $1,300 for the wreaths, and the veterans' benefits for $235,000 to move to the select board.
Second.
I need a second.
Second.
Second from Marie. Pat, did you want to weigh in on this?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to recommend to the Select Board the veterans' budget as printed, plus the additional $1,300 for the wreaths, if we can find the money, and I would endeavor the town administrator to seek that out. And this is just for a recommendation to the Select Board for the budget, so we're not approving it, we're just asking that it go forward and so forth. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You in or out, Pat?
I'm in, aye.
Okay. Thank you. 7-0. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, thank you.
We're going to try to find you that wreath money if we can tip the town administrator upside down and shake his pocket. Can we bring up the COA? Hi, Connie. Congratulations, or my condolences on your new appointment.
I know, thank you.
Could you just state your name again?
Yeah, Connie Kelly.
Sure, there are some days when it's congratulations and others days of what was I thinking?
Keeps it interesting.
Isn't that being polite? Yours is pretty straightforward.
It is for the most part. I just had a question on the other purchase services. It had been requested at a higher amount because I had actually included a $1,200 subscription cost, which is new to the budget as it was for My Senior Center, which is a new subscription service for data retrieval that we only purchased in September. So we'll have an annual fee of $1,200, and I just want to make sure that gets covered.
And what is that for?
It's called My Senior Center, and it's a data retrieval software program. And it's pretty much utilized by all the COAs in this area. And it's a way to keep track of the activities and the attendance, membership in general, but it also offers a lot of other features, and it's a tool to be able to use for grant applications and that type of thing. So we're just getting it up and running. I haven't had any seniors to register yet because we haven't been open to allow for it. So even though we already have it purchased, it's not really fully functioning at this time, but it will come due annually for an additional $1,200. So I just want to make sure that gets covered.
So that $500 number that's there now, you need to add $1,200 to, or you want to add $700 to?
I would like to add the $1,200 because I think other purchase services covers a wide category. I pulled out of that, if you look at the original figure, I pulled out as line items the waste disposal and a repair number that was off as separate line items that had been covered under other purchase services. But 500 was going to be a little bit less than what I would have had, like another 1,000 in there. And that, the 3,328 from 2020 doesn't factor in that My Senior Center $1,200. So even if you take 2,000 out for the waste disposal and repair, that is a separate line item at the bottom, it still would be another $1,000 that would have been in the budget.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask Finance Director what her thoughts are in terms of this, the other purchase services and other line items here. If she has any comments that perhaps, if I don't recollect, if Connie doesn't recollect at the moment. Because obviously that's obviously a service that we're going to want to sustain.
Well, that brings that line item to 1,700, and then there was the additional $1,000 for
Activities.
activities. So now we're looking at 2,200. Meg, you want to weigh in on this?
Well, again, we've just added, we're going to be trying to find $1,300 for veterans and to add more to the COA. This is now this is starting to add up to a point as far as I can tell, and Rick can contradict me, the budget that's here, there's no place really to cut. So to add any place requires a cut, and I will need direction on what needs to be cut.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest, Megan, we haven't had a chance to speak since you were back in the meeting, but I have confidence that some of our fixed costs and our health insurance, we should have a little bit of room. So so these kinds of small amounts are manageable, but, it'd be difficult to go a lot further.
What did you do before you had the software? Did you track it in Excel or paper?
No, it was just really by hand, lunches were just by hand tallies, that type of record that, and before, I only came on in October, so I wasn't part of that. And I kept track of my activities myself, but as far as having that accurate, what's nice about the software, it will print out in a report form, and when there's annual requests for, from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, it actually is formatted to answer their questions with the data just printing out. It has other features like robocalling, which we were saying would be really ideal at this moment, to be able to call seniors with regard to updates on the COVID vaccine status and things like that. So it has these added bonuses. It has features within it that are great for our outreach worker because she can actually keep contacts and information in her notes as she meets with the seniors. So it really has a multitude of uses. And I think we'll benefit from it greatly. But I do notice that most of the COAs in this area already have it in place.
And you said you can apply for grants with it. Is there any grants you could apply for, maybe, that would help offset the cost?
I'm not aware of anything at the moment, but I think that there could be a point where it can pay for itself, for sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think the money we're talking about between the veterans and COA is again, fairly minimal in the context of this budget.
I agree with that statement. I don't see, so there was nothing put in here for activities.
No, correct.
So that's going to be a whole new line.
And we've been 100% dependent on the Friends of the COA for providing activities, support, and funding just for any programming that we do whatsoever. So that's why it would be great to have at least a base to work from, because this year in particular, all the fundraising efforts have been canceled due to COVID, and we've lost the opportunity to have some fundraising to go forward. So we still don't really know where that will stand for this upcoming year.
Did your Friends Committee have to also pay into it an annual fee to be in the Friends?
No.
They don't?
No.
Okay.
No, the Friends used to buy it, they used to pay for all the postage for the newsletter and stuff like that, so.
Exactly, and they're still doing that. They,
Right.
but when we had trips, they would subsidize the trips to
Right.
allow, so it was several thousand. But they used to have luncheons, fundraisings, and craft fairs, all of those had to be canceled.
I've seen Friends Committees before where you pay $25, you're on the committee every year, and then that's kind of what
The
helps out.
membership is, they actually increased their membership from $5 to $10. Had a really good membership drive at the beginning of last year, which was great because before everything shut down, we got a lot of people to join up. But there has been a lot of interest, and we're just getting some people, even though we haven't really been open, some new members the people have been renewing their membership as well. So that's been adding a little bit more income.
Just a quick question on that software. Is it a yearly subscription?
Yes.
So it's not like you buy it once, it's the,
Correct, because they keep updating it to follow along with the needs of the COA. Just like what I mentioned too with the the Office of Elder Affairs, they have just recently designed that to work with it because it's been a request for that data to kind of follow suit to what the questions are that they ask. So they're adapting it to whatever the needs are, and even with the vaccines, and they had I think they built into some systems an ability for people to register people for vaccines if they were holding the vaccine at the COA itself. So we weren't doing anything like that, but that was a feature that they were providing.
So is it something that's going to require like a consultant to set up and get you train the trainer, that kind of a thing?
But there's already been a beginning training, and then once we get up and running with the seniors coming back to start the registration, there'll be another set of that. We just got it has been uploaded. We have a scanner. In other COAs, they have touchscreen entries where everyone who registers gets a little key tag, and then they're registered with that, and as you scan in, it records their data and the activities that they're attending. So that's how the data gets built up with that too, but you have to develop a barcode for every activity that you offer.
Is it like on a kiosk when you walk in?
In most COAs it is. We've got the budget version. that
Okay.
is- We'll have something similar to that, but for example, Plymouth has it as a touchscreen TV type of thing where you touch in and your account comes up, and then you see pictures of the activities, and they just touch. They're having lunch and going to yoga or whatever. So the way we'll have it set up, I'll have the barcodes for activities and lunch on display, and when they come in, they'll scan their card, and then they'll scan those activities. So it's not as pretty as a screen, but it will be the same function.
Yeah, the nice thing with the kiosks is that before they scan it, a lot of places will advertise on it. So an urgent care center, and then you
Yes.
make the money back that way.
That is the next level, and even the Friends were of interest of like trying to support something like this if we can go to that next level.
Yeah.
That kiosk with the touch screen was $10,000, but it's $3,000 if we do the advertising on it. So that makes it very affordable, and they pursue the advertising. So you don't have to, and I think that would be a very agreeable thing to do, actually.
Can we upgrade to it?
We could. Is that the-
No, I mean, can we do
Yeah.
this and then upgrade to that?
Yes, yes.
So, correct me if my math is wrong, but with the 1,200 and the 1,000 for activities, that brings that budget to 126,914. Does that sound right, Mr.
Yeah,
Town Administrator?
Elaine just pointed out to me that in the COA budget, there's actually $1,000 for trash. And it would make sense for us to shift that to O&M, the only department that would be paying for that, so.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure that O&M can absorb that, and that would free up $1,000 of the
Okay.
money you're speaking of right now.
Excellent.
Could I just get what lines are being changed and to how much?
$1,000 out of the rubbish and waste disposal, shift that over to the O&M side.
So that doesn't have to
Doesn't even have to transfer as a dollar amount, it's just added into their budget. It's not going to increase by $1,000 by any means.
So I'm taking $1,000 out of COA and moving it to
Taking
O&M?
$1,000 out of the rubbish and waste disposal and shifting it over to O&M.
Okay.
No, that's not what we're doing.
Now, O&M stays the same, and the $1,000 that's currently in the trash removal.
Oh, I see what you're telling me.
Just becomes
Activities.
reallocated to a.
Don't change anything.
Exactly, reallocated.
The $1,000 is now going to become activities, and O&M's going to come get the trash. But everything's going to stay the same. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Plus the 12.
Plus the $1,200 for the software. Where are we getting that from?
That's probably gonna be coming out of the savings in townwide share due to the reduction in the.
Okay, so we only need to change this number by $1,200, not $2,200.
So, and just
We'll
to,
figure it all out tomorrow, Meg.
just to clarify on that 1,200, so that 1,200 is the software and all of the setup to be able to use it? There's no additional,
Yeah, the software's already paid for, and this would be the upgrades and the annual subscription to be like a member of this, because,
right?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
So now we're down to 125,914.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the Council on Aging budget for COA salaries of $109,264, and the COA operating budget total $16,650. That's made up of the original $15,450 plus the $1,200 for the My Senior Center to move forward to recommend to the Board of Selectmen.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the COA budget of 109,264 plus 16,650 for the operating. This will also include the $1,200 for the software upgrade to recommend to the Select Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You in with that, Pat?
I'm in, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Megan's going to kill us both tomorrow, you know that, don't you?
I have a lot of faith in me.
Can we do recreation, and then we can do selectmen, and then we can do the clerk, and then we can beat up on PEP? How's that? Recreation?
Do you want me or Mary?
Both.
Give you one there and one over
Be
here.
like Bob Barker, come on down. Please state your name so that Kelly can get him in the minutes. We know who you are, but
Emily Slavin, Recreation Coordinator.
Mary Ross, Recreation Committee Chair.
hi, Emily. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Good.
Talk to us about the Recreation Committee.
Well, we're as busy as we can be in COVID. What do you want to know?
We just had a couple of questions.
So,
We
really not
understand,
much going on in the recreation budget.
So I think I was the one that thought we should do a flip-flop here and move the salary from recreation to the budget, right? And then the expenses to free cash?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we've done? Okay.
That's what we were kind of told, but I
Okay.
was confused about the free cash portion of it, if we could just have a little explanation, because we definitely need some type of budget to work off of, so.
So I believe, and you guys know better than I would, but I believe in the past, the salary portion was coming out of free cash and being voted on it.
It's a stipend position. Yeah.
And we were voting on it at town meeting, if we
Right.
were gonna pay it or not. So I felt like we should have a position in the budget and not the expenses in the budget, and then vote on what we're gonna, the expenses at town meeting and not vice versa. Does that make sense?
Well,
To flip it?
The budget includes the salaries for the director, the coordinator.
Exactly.
Right, that's what the budget.
So we were almost saying, yes, we're gonna have it, and we're gonna spend these expenses, but then who was gonna run it? We were voting on that every year at town meeting.
Correct.
Instead, we're flipping that.
So I think our question, speaking for the committee, and Mary jump in, is how is the free cash going to work? Because we do have some expenses as the recreation that we rely on using that budget for. So just maybe an explanation to us how that free cash is going to work for the things that we need it for. And I can go through some of the things if you needed.
Yeah, and you're
Examples.
referring to specifically, like, sort of logistically, when you have to spend the money and expense those funds, how
Correct.
that process works, and probably more specifically, how is that process different than what you've done in the past?
Correct.
Where the funds came directly out of the budget, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Because I think to Beth's point, it does make sense to make the switch that we're making so that we're correctly capturing what is a reoccurring expense in the form of payroll should be rolled into the budget and captured into the budget. And then the other items that the committee may need, ideally, your budget would be $43,000 and it would all be captured in the budget. But given the fact that we don't have that flexibility in the budget specifically this year, more so than others, it makes sense to have the salaries and the payroll in the budget, and then those other expenses paid for out of free cash. So Meg, can you provide a little bit of color or explanation to Mary and Emily on how the process of utilizing the funds that are approved through free cash will work, and if that's different than in years past, where it was approved through the budget?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really going to be very similar to how you're doing the payroll right now. Right now, what you have, the payroll is gone through free cash. It's been assigned an account number that was reflective of the article going back to 2017. The article is called Startup Summer Rec Funds. We could theoretically still use that account number if that just makes everyone's life easy, so that, you know, you always use that account number when you submitted a timesheet, a payroll for Emily's stipend, you charged it to that account number. We can leave that account number exactly the same. And so rather than charging your timesheet to that account number, you would charge your expenses there. And then Emily's stipend would be charged to, I'll probably just end up throwing the money into the general fund rec budget salary line. And so you just charge the timesheet there. So it's really, it seems complicated, but it's really not.
Okay.
It's just that everything's tied to an account number. Once you have the account number, you should be totally fine.
Yeah, and I do understand that. So what would be going to town floor meeting would be how much that we could use out of the free cash for things such as porta potties. I can list out different things.
I think the expectation is that the free cash article will indicate $21,000, which was previously the salary line item, or the free cash, the part that was in the budget was 21,000. So now the budget will reflect 22.5. That's what's proposed for the salary. And the 21,000 that was in the budget will now be part of the free cash article.
Right.
Yeah, I just feel like,
I would also point out that over, I'm not sure how long, but the revolving fund was paying for utilities. And this is the only department that was paying its own utility bill. So that is no longer, that is shifted now into O&M, so that's an expense that this department will not have to bear anymore themselves.
Which would be
How
nice.
much was that last year?
It's very hard to tell, like, it was hard for me to get the numbers because at some points we had.
It's all molded into one bill?
Well, at some points.
We had some solar
We had
credits.
solar grants, so some of them weren't,
Which
so it was
was
really hard to
wonderful.
tell. I don't have the exact number.
It's expensive though.
Yeah,
Can we get a little
like
closer than it's
10,000,
expensive?
5,000?
Just a little, just a little.
An average, in the summer, an average 500 to 600 a
Yeah.
month.
Okay.
I would say about that. Summer months,
Well, between lights and irrigation.
Irrigation was very expensive.
yes, especially last
A lot more
summer.
than we thought. Some months was $80 for irrigation at like Purchase Street.
Wow.
Yeah,
So that's all going to O&M now?
Correct, yes,
Did they already build it into their budget?
yes.
Okay.
So,
Well, they know they're taking.
Well, did we tell them?
so we were getting 3 bills. We were getting Forest Street, Purchase Street, and the behind here King property.
well, that's good. That'll be,
So can I just confirm the numbers then? So we have 22.5 in the budget for the rec stipend, and we have 21,000 coming out of free cash for rec expenses, correct?
That's correct.
yep.
Okay.
Which should be consistent with prior years.
Yep.
Correct, just flip-flop.
Well, I think 20 for expenses, but maybe, or maybe not. Never mind.
I just thought it seemed more reasonable. It's been so many years that it's been coming out of free cash that it's time to move it over
I agree.
a budgeted item.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think maybe looking towards FY '23, maybe make a dent in that.
Okay,
No.
But you're right, it's a recurring cost,
yeah.
and it should be treated that way. But I think at least getting the personnel cost into the budget is, it's fair. It's not what you have to go to town meeting or a job. Well,
Yeah,
Essentially what happened.
That's what happens, yeah.
That's not.
yeah.
So out of this 21,000, this is where this additional, the light bill and the water bill, this was taken out of this?
So in our budget, what we were
Yes.
paying, yeah, we were paying.
So if that all goes away, then you have more money of that 21,000, more of that is going to be utilized toward actual recreation as opposed to
Yes.
turning the lights
Correct.
on and watering the grass.
Correct.
Yes.
I like to keep it simple.
Yep.
So now we're going to get to the hot topic, and Mary knows exactly the question I'm about to ask, because I've asked it every time I've seen her, and I think I've asked it every time I've seen Emily.
I can fill you in.
It's the story on the cameras at the playground.
Yep. So, one of the committee members, Jim Hoffman, has been working with the police department. Unfortunately, we're kind of at a roadblock right now because we were going to tie it into the police departments, and they haven't really got to that portion yet, so we've kind of been at a roadblock. We feel very strongly, and I'm saying that very strongly, this playground, the money that has been put into this, and the location, we really think cameras are needed.
You don't feel any stronger than that than I do. Speaking
There are
as a
bathrooms.
grandfather.
There will be bathrooms there.
That's right.
There will be
That's
bathrooms,
right.
they will be on a coded lock, so that way they will be open under certain hours. Dave Seatondoff will be installing those. And the committee and myself feel very strongly that there's a lot of money in there, and there's the safety of everyone to be there. And just recently, I mean, Mary and I field a lot of phone calls, a lot.
I'm concerned about vandalism.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about somebody getting hurt in the town's liability portion of it.
100%.
And mostly, I hate to say it, we don't live in Sleepy Hollow. I'm more concerned with the fact that there are 2 bathrooms that are unguarded, and when somebody walks into one of those bathrooms, no one knows who's following them in there.
Yep. Yeah,
And
we
this
feel.
is not Sleepy
agree.
Hollow. I mean,
No.
it's close, but it's not. So, it's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a 3 strike for me.
And as far as since the playground has been open, now think about it, it opened during COVID. It opened late in the spring. So we have had, but it's being used all the time. Snow on it, it's being used. So it is so important that we do this right. We've done so much work to get here, and the phone calls we receive, it'd be nice to know that we had backup than just someone calling or emailing or complaining, or that if we had to look at a camera footage, we would be able to. So,
Mr. Town Administrator, it's a hot button for me. I know it's incredibly important to them. This is
Yes.
what they were promised originally. This was going to happen at the get-go. For whatever reason, I'll leave it at that. But I would like to see that become a priority for the recreation, for the town's own liability safety, as well as the safety of these kids that go over there and play over there. This is just, it's a bad thing looking for a good place to happen, as far as I'm concerned. Because it's set back now, it's farther out of the way. It's not like it was when it was, for lack of a better way of putting it, when it was out in the open on Main Street. I think psychologically you thought to yourself, well, you know, the playground's here, but Main Street's right there, and the fire station's right across the street.
but the bathrooms were used at a library, so this is where you
Bathrooms
bring
were
the
used at the
difference.
library, so it's a different, I agree with you.
This
So,
is where you bring the difference to us, is the bathrooms
Now
were
we're
used
tucked
in the
out back
library.
someplace, and you can't even see the bathrooms unless you happen to walk out there physically. You don't
And
even
I
see the
mean-
building.
It isn't as tucked back as you think, I understand what you're saying, but because you can come in either side of the playground, you can come in Carver Square or here, but just in general, I think that the equipment and the surface, we're real nervous about the surface, Mary and I, but we got it once, we're never getting it again, so we really have to take care of it, and I think that's what worries us, you know?
So I would very much like that to become a hard looked at
Is the,
solution.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
I was just wondering if the police station, if you knew if they were getting to that point where they were installing their cameras.
I will double check. I will actually, call.
Well, we have a meeting tomorrow.
We do.
Tomorrow
It's
night,
on our-
so,
Okay, we have a committee, building committee meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
thanks.
Excellent.
What time is your meeting?
6 o'clock.
6.
6 o'clock?
Room 3.
Okay. Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to move to recommend to the select board the recreation budget for the operating stipend for $22,500.
Second.
Motion made, and seconded to recommend to the select board the $22,500 for the recreation budget. Any further discussion? Pat, you all set? Anything questions?
I have no further questions, no.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. What time's your meeting tomorrow night?
6 o'clock,
Let me
room
see
3,
you there.
downstairs.
I'll be the guy wearing bells. Thank you, I really appreciate it. You guys do a great job. The Recreation Committee is a really important aspect in this town, especially these times when these kids are cooped up in the house and there's nothing to do.
Yeah, we're excited I've actually been in touch with the school. I'm trying to work with the school while they do summer school this summer. Hopefully I can get some camps on the end of it to help out the parents. We have great plans. We had great plans for last summer. We were working with an art person that did all the art in Plymouth, under the bridges and things, those murals. They were gonna come to Carver and work with us to get murals on things like dugouts that, the paint's kind of gone or, so we have some really great plans. We've done what we can. We do a lot of free activities for every season. We're really big about that. Gingerbread houses went out. We made it a drive up, So we are excited for what's to come, and I'm excited to grow this into a department someday, hopefully, a big, so that those camps can be places where you don't have to look outside of Carver to get your kid into a camp. That would be nice.
What a great idea. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask one quick
Yes.
question? On the expenses, part of the budget, coming out of free cash, is that an item that would have to be defended at town meeting?
It's going to become a line item at town meeting that they'll vote on. I don't think you'd have to defend it per se. It'll be mentioned as one of the free cash articles.
Okay.
I don't see it, I see it being pretty self-explanatory. I'm
Okay.
sure, you're going to attend town meetings, so
Oh,
if
yeah.
there's a question, then,
Yeah.
somebody will ask it, but I don't see that as being,
I think last year we did vote on each one individually, but
Yeah.
there was no issue with it.
there was no issue.
Or
It
the
kind
year
of bing, bang, boom, went right through.
Did you want a stage to do a PowerPoint, or what was your,
No, it's just nice to be prepared, just
I
in
gotcha.
the event of.
I could rattle it off
You,
for you.
yeah.
Throw him right under the bus. Put
Yeah.
him right on the spot for this. He can be the spokesman for it.
I do so happily. It should be part of the budget, and you
No
guys should
doubt.
have a much bigger recreation budget. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
should not be contingent upon a free cash item every year. It's
I agree.
not the way it should be.
Adding to that, so this year, we did it as free cash. Would it be in the future where we're in better state? Would we think about recreation going back to having a budget with both? Okay,
Yeah,
That's
Rick
the
just
goal.
said in 2023,
Oh,
we'll look
okay.
at that one.
okay,
Bring it
great.
in.
That
I
should be
think
the
it's a
goal.
better idea. I really do. I think that it should be,
It's just nice to know we have
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I don't think
And
we
what
should
we
have
can build.
recurring items in the free
Well,
cash.
free cash, it technically is not recurring. It's the same amount of money going to the same kind of stuff, but it's technically not the same because it's not contractually recurring. But I agree. I don't think you should have to wait until April town meeting and hold your breath to see if they're gonna give you the money out of free cash so you can go, plan on the stuff you wanna plan on. I think it should be part of a budget process, and I think it should be something that, we do. There's a
Is the
lot of
plan-
stuff we do that I sometimes scratch my head for. This would not be one of those things. Seriously. After we get cameras.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. Good to see you. Okay. Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
Hello.
How are you? Rick threw you under the bus tonight, made you do this?
He left the room.
I see that. We just had we didn't really, I'll be honest with you, I had no questions about the selectmen's budget, and I got 2 phone calls when I posted it on the revised agenda with, what do you need? What do you want to know? What are you going after that for? And I'm not going after anything. I just think it's a decent amount of money, and I think it needs the transparency, that's all. There's a lot of things in there that some people may look at and scratch their head and say, oh, that doesn't seem right, that's a lot of money. So this is why I think the transparency for this department is good. So, nobody's here putting anybody under the spotlight. Well, I can't speak for Mr. Holmes. I guess the only question I have is the additional hours, salary adjustments, and incentive pay. It's a very small increase. Actually, it's a decrease. Yeah,
Considerable. 25?
yeah. What is that fund for, Elaine?
Meg could probably speak to this, but as to why it's such a huge decrease. But those funds are used for contractual obligations. So if one of the bargaining units negotiated something mid-year, there'd be money to pay it out. And it also went towards cost of living adjustments.
And clerical salaries that dropped 66%?
Is anyone still on furlough?
No,
coming out of
so there we actually have a retirement coming up.
that? Okay.
So we're going to fund that position until the employee retires, and then we're not going to fund that position the rest of the year. So we are giving up a
Excellent.
position.
Okay.
That was it for me.
The increase in municipal insurance?
So we have the new police station, and that will be a significant increase to the budget. There's usually a percentage increase every year over last year's insurance, and we're not getting rid of any buildings. We are still going to have to insure the old police fire station, at least for now, unless it gets closed down for some reason. But if it's still going to be used, we still need to insure it.
Yeah, the next townwide expenses, but that's not this department, so I'll ask that question later.
What are your questions on those?
I was wondering, well, the streetlights?
Okay.
We converted over to LEDs, and yet we seem to still going up $36,000? Am I looking at that right?
Okay, that I cannot answer.
170,000 for streetlights?
Yeah.
Electric and
Where's
streetlights,
left, yeah.
20.
$36,000 increase from FY '21?
Meg, do you know why that is?
I thought we went to all LED.
Again?
We did.
Electric and streetlights,
Yeah,
$36,000 increase? Did we take over a bill that we weren't paying before?
no, the request is $36,000 more. The actual number that is being proposed is not. So if you look at the 150 was what we budgeted for FY '21, 186 is their request. So Elaine did request the electric and streetlights account, but then I had a conversation because, well, I'm not sure what number she put in, but Dave had requested additional funds for the new police station. So we kind of have like an offset, and we kind of came to a negotiation because the LED streetlights around town should significantly drop our electric and streetlights account. But then we have, so on one hand we have a down, but then we have an up with the new police station. So the 170, not knowing where we will actually fall with the police station, we felt was maybe a fair compromise. But just as a forewarning, there is a solid chance that we could be coming back to the Finance Committee for a reserve fund transfer for that electric and streetlights account because of the police station.
Right, that makes sense. So if you don't look at that 36,000, if you go from the 186 requested to the 170, that's 16,000. So the LED streetlights should save us about 18,000. And Dave Siedentoff anticipated the cost of the new police station being around 16 to 18,000. So I think that's probably.
So it became a wash,
Yeah.
but we're gonna save money
We're
once
not
we shut
sure.
everything off next door too,
If it's shut off.
theoretically.
I think they are still having uses for that building. So that's why it's so hard as is a guess at this point.
Okay. Everything else is normal. The insurance makes sense. Anyone else have any questions?
No.
Pat?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I'll take a motion on the Selectmen's Town Administrator budget. And I will make note that the salary for the executive consultant has been moved out and moved to a single-time expense now because this is the last year of that contract, so theoretically, it's a one-time expense, so it's coming out of free cash. So it's not part of the Selectmen's budget. We didn't do it last year because it was gonna go on for 2 years, and it would become kind of a recurring thing, so I didn't think it was appropriate.
I make a motion to recommend to the Select Board the Selectmen operating expense budget of $363,400 and the town-wide expenses for $369,000.
And the 422,612 for the Selectmen's salaries.
Yep, and the Selectmen TA salaries for $422,612.
There we go.
Sorry.
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to recommend to the Select Board the Selectmen Town Administrator's line, 422,612, 343,400, and 369 even, 369,000 even. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
What about the moderator?
Wasn't that easy, huh? Moderator, it's $250.
We don't do it, okay.
Thank you, Elaine.
It is what it is. Thank you, Elaine. Sorry we kept you all this time for something that was actually faster than a small budget would be. It's always the big numbers that are really easy, right? You guys want to flip a coin, see who goes first? Hi, Cara. I didn't intentionally pull you up last, but I was trying to give the smaller committees, which don't always get the big voice,
That's okay.
I really wanted to give them an opportunity to speak tonight,
That's fine.
if you don't mind. I knew you'd be
Not at all.
gracious about it.
I'm good.
How are we doing down in Clerk land?
Oh, I think we're doing pretty good. I mean, we got through one heck of a year.
You did a good job with the elections.
Thank you, I appreciate that. These nice.
Everything came off nice and smooth?
Yeah, these nice shields that you have in front of you.
Don't
I
get me
bought
started on everything.
from the state. Didn't cost us a penny, but I do need 5 more, and those will cost just about $90 a piece.
Why do we need 5 more? Just take these.
I need 5, I need 18 to do an election with 3 precincts. So in the last election, we could only get so many. The state ran short, so they just weren't in supply. We couldn't have them made in time. And we had a few people that didn't have them. And try explaining, Marie's one of my election workers, try explaining to someone why they didn't get one. They feel, well, maybe I don't want to be here.
Maybe we won't need one by then.
Hopefully not, But April, I really think we're going to, so. And God forbid if they give us another precinct, that might happen after the census is done, so.
This isn't even acrylic. Okay. So again, your account is really a double-edged sword. There's some duplication because of the registrar portion
Right,
and the town clerk's portion, which
right.
I'm okay with. I don't see anything that jumps out at me.
So I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. Data processing, did we incorporate that into someone else? It's right above the town clerk. Was that moved into the town clerk?
Data processing is not part of the town clerk's
Okay.
budget.
It's not part of mine.
Well, because it's now 0, so I didn't know if we had.
Yeah, because the school's
reallocated
taking it. That's going over to the school side. I believe IT
Sorry.
is going over there.
I didn't know if you were picking it up.
I'm pretty sure it's the school. I'll double check when Rick comes back from his hiatus. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the simple question, because this is pretty level funded from last year, actually. It's not a whole lot going on here. What's the wish list?
So, I don't even know if it's something that we need. We need to get some poll pads. They're similar to an iPad, and you can use them at town meeting check-in. You can use them right now for early voting check-in. Eventually, the Secretary of State will approve them. The governor approved them, but the Secretary of State hasn't yet, so that we can use them in the elections. And you can have a license, you can have the license scanned, and the person's name is checked in. There are no more cumbersome flipping of pages to try to find someone, because our last town meeting, it was an issue, having people wearing glasses and masks and not being able to see. So that would alleviate that totally. I believe I can still take them. Michael was gracious enough to allot us $30,000 for new election equipment. So between 4 new tabulators and these 3 poll pads, I think we can get it out of that money if we could.
You still have $30,000?
I believe I do. I'm going to check with Meg. I'm not going to order anything until I know for sure. There's,
Didn't we take that money, Meg, and go on a cruise or something?
No.
Is it going,
Sorry, I was muted.
is it going good this year? I remember last year we had some problems with the town clerk. Remember
well,
like
it was
line
new.
items?
What happened last year was we actually copied the budget from the year before, and I'm new, and that was an election year with 4 elections in it, and we were going to run short. The other thing that really hit us were all the unfunded mandates. I mean, we had mail-in voting, which we'd never experienced before.
To this
Had
degree.
2 whole weeks of early voting. We did 7 days a week, 14 days straight of early voting, and that's never happened before. There were all these things that came up, and the state literally volleyed things at us day to day that changed. And I think we did pretty good because, we made it through it, and we didn't have to ask for too much help. So I think we did well. We were scared going into it because we didn't know what would happen, and we were going with a budget from a previous year that was not a presidential election year.
Yeah.
So I thought it went pretty well, and if we could get through that, I think we can get through anything.
Yeah, it seems like you've got a much better handle on it.
Yeah, I
and
do
you did
now.
great.
I know now. I walked through the fire. It's pretty good.
I remember I felt awful last year,
Feel
but it looks like you really
confident.
understand it. And
Yeah, well, there were some things I just didn't know, because if you haven't had these experiences and you haven't gone through every single thing that hits you during a year, you wouldn't know, what to anticipate. So we did a few things. We changed some vendors, and, we're pretty frugal. We cut where we can, and,
How's your staffing?
well, we need to add somebody, because we had our records assistant or technician retire, so we will need to get someone. So right now, it's just Donna and myself, and we're very comfortable with that. We've got a really great senior work-off lady that has come in the last 2 weeks, and, she'd like to come in more, but, April's coming, and I think she can reapply, and I think she has about 50 hours or 52 hours that she can use for each fiscal year, so she's wonderful. And she's helping with the filing of the census, all the little tedious tasks that we just don't get to, so.
And are you still using, last year it was Miss Parker, right, that was helping
Yeah,
out?
Mrs. Parker is still my go-to gal. She's my mentor. I have a group, though, that I can go to ask questions for. She was here with me minimally through the last election and the election previously to that. It would be nice to have her again. She may even work as a warden for me on the upcoming one. I'm trying to talk her into it.
Okay.
Because we're always short wardens, especially for the town election. So many that do travel and go down to Florida for the winter aren't back yet in time for our local elections. So that leaves us really shorthanded warden-wise. That's the most important part, most important position of our election, so.
was she a consultant? Didn't we have a consultant last year also?
That was her.
That was her.
That was her,
yeah.
okay.
I think I just mailed her 1099, and I believe she was about $3,700.
Yeah, we did I think we did.
And I think that was pretty frugal.
Yeah, we
for-
did.
Yeah.
For elections and everything else that we needed her for.
How close are we to a 4th precinct, do you know?
I don't know until that federal census comes
That's
back.
what I'm-
That's what,
Because
these
we're right on the
numbers could
cusp, right? If we
change.
go to 12,000, we need a 4th?
Well, we're at 10, we were at 10,700. We were under 11, so.
Oh, I thought we were 11,500.
We went down. We actually went down in the last numbers, so
Oh.
our numbers went down.
Okay.
So that was
I feel
good.
better. I was waiting for the shoe to drop and have him tell, we're 12,200
No,
people,
it's
we
only
need a fourth
another
precinct.
4 or 5 with everything then, that's why. When we order those tabulators, we plan on 4, one being a spare. And in the presidential election, we had one that wouldn't turn on election morning. So that was wonderful. So we grabbed the spare real quick, we threw it together, and we just went like nothing. It just went off like nothing.
Excellent.
Yep.
Now, for my own edification, just because I was curious, when you have, like Marie, I know Mrs. Ross too, helps out with elections, and that staff, are they compensated for that time?
They are, it's not a lot of money, so if I did have a wish list, I would like to bump up my election workers' salaries. They don't get a lot. It's about a minimum wage, even for the wardens. I think they range from $10 and something an hour to $13 an hour for a check-in person, a clerk, and then a warden. It's not a lot of money. And we try to feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner during the day, because you have to.
Yeah, sure.
You're not paying them hardly anything.
And are they also the staff that is covering, not necessarily absentee, but early voting
Early
hours here at
voting
Town
as
Hall?
well, that's where we find our staffing for that. And like I said, that was unfunded. We had no idea they were gonna have us do 2 whole weeks.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Right,
I think,
yeah,
I think you
that's
deserve a little bit of credit for managing things as well as you did.
Thank you.
Budget-wise.
Thank you.
Because that was totally unforeseen.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
And to have people available here at Town Hall as much as you did
Mm-hmm.
for those hours, I think, was nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it didn't completely blow up a budget is pretty impressive. So
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you.
doing that, but thanks for managing it as well as you did.
Thank you. The other thing that we did is we took all of our mail-in votes and all of our early votes, and I had a special team. Mary was one of my workers on my special team. Over 2 days, we went and we processed all of those votes, and then we waited and we took everything to the election, and then we ran our results from it. But if we hadn't done that, election day would have been terrible, wouldn't it have? Yeah, it would have been horrible. So just having a little bit of foresight to try to get that out of the way before election day, it helped considerably. So we don't know what we're going to do with this local election. Our emergency order ends on March 31st. So we don't know if they're going to order us to have early voting for a local election and mail-in voting as well. We'll always have our absentee voting, but, similar to the last election, that could be put upon us.
Okay.
So we have to kind of that'll be an extra expense. I will say that the Division of Local Services is starting to pay us back. One of the unfunded mandates should be coming soon. Meg will probably see it before I even hear about it. But from the presidential primary in March, some clerks are getting funding back for that. So that'll be
Oh,
good.
good.
That's great. Yep.
Every little bit helps.
Yep, and I applied for a grant. I got a grant for $5,000, so I didn't ask for any COVID money during it. I was too busy to be honest. I didn't have time to stop and look. But that $5,000 too, we can put in to try to, help with some COVID expenses that we're gonna have, so.
I would have thought there'd be some perfect opportunities for some COVID money out of the clerk's office, given the
There should have
fact that
been,
we
but,
had the
we were
elections. No?
We were so busy. We were just so busy. We didn't have time. I mean, I got these. It was, flying by the seat of my pants, though, because we've always been busy, so.
Thank God for those.
Yeah, these are helpful. They really are. You don't like them.
They were helpful with the election.
They really are,
They were.
yeah.
Yes, I don't like them.
You don't like them? Oh,
I hate them in here.
oh,
I feel
well,
like I'm,
you're
In
safe.
prison.
yeah, I don't like them.
Get your bulletproof
I feel like I'm
vest.
ready to pick up the telephone and talk to my mother through the glass.
Yeah.
I just, I'm sorry?
At least they're not mirrors.
You're pretty safe now that your selectmen's budget slid through, huh? Okay. All right. Moving right along. Pat, you got any questions on the clerk's office and the registrars?
I do not. Everything's good.
I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to recommend to the select board the town clerk's budget for the salaries for $138,169, and the town clerk operating expenses for $6,075.
And the registrars.
And the registrar's election and salaries for $15,000.
And election
And the
and
ele-
operating.
And the election and registrar's operating for $15,760.
Second all of that.
Motion, motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board the budget request for the town clerk and registrar's combination department. 138, 169, 6,075, 15,000, and 15,760 has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Abstain.
Aye.
Alan? Alan? I need to abstain. I'm a poll
6.
worker.
Okay.
Do I have
Sorry? Not really.
Yeah, well, she's
No?
a poll worker, but.
Do I have to
But
abstain?
her
You're a poll
salary,
worker, though.
but her salary would be in here,
The salary is there, so.
that she would be paid,
When in doubt, abstain.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Her-
just in case.
The 6 is good anyway,
Very
so.
noble of you.
Thank you, Marie. 601, Kelly?
Thank you.
Yeah, we know you're a poll worker, so I wasn't concerned about, there's really nothing. You didn't make a motion that we should increase the poll workers' salaries by 150%, so I didn't see it being too self-serving, so that's okay. But thank you for bringing that up, and I appreciate it. Okay, thank you, Kara. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Walsh,
Good evening, everyone.
how are you?
Jim Walsh, Director of Planning, Environment, and Permitting.
So I understand there's some new things trying to come this year to your department.
Yes. So right now, we're working on implementing the new e-permitting system. We've been working with the consultant probably for the last 2 months. So we meet once a week for an hour. We go through each of the forms that the permitting office has for building permits, electrical permits, and so they kind of take our paper forms and then create them into electronic forms. So that way when someone comes, wants to apply for a building permit, they would apply electronically online. They can use an iPhone or pad or computer keyboard and go ahead and submit all their information online. One of the benefits to that is that number one, we won't have a stack of paper in the office that our staff has to kind of move around. So if someone is kind of in the middle of something and they forgot to submit something, you don't have that pile of paper on top of the desk that you have to kind of try to push over to the side somewhere until you get the information. And the nice thing about the system, it is also kind of like if you're ordering something online and if you don't fill out the box with the asterisk on it, it won't allow you to submit. So that's one of the other things we're trying to do is to alleviate, to have them submit all the required information, is that there's going to be the asterisk buttons where they actually have to submit the document or other information to us. One of the benefits of the system is currently right now, for example, if I wanted to figure out how much money in building permit fees or the valuation of the permits, everything is merely entered into a logbook. Then that's taken and transferred to a spreadsheet, and then is now transferred up to finance, for their purposes, for the assessor's office and also for finance. So with this system, we're hoping to be able to design some metrics so we can see, what kind of fees are coming in, what are the big numbers, the large ground-mounted solar or the, mostly residential repairs. It'll be easier to kind of look at the information and, kind of make projections based off of that. Just trying to think if there's anything else. And then I know that Rick is going to get into it a little bit later, but we also
looking at transitioning from a part-time building commissioner into a full-time building commissioner, but that's still being worked out in the budget process.
What's the other purchased services? Is this program, or is this 33,295?
Yes, so where did I go?
Or is this
So-
services like a Fuss and O'Neill and
No,
town council and?
So Fuss and O'Neill comes out of a R&I account where money is deposited by the developer. And so that money is billed against that account, and then anything remaining in the R&I account is then reimbursed to the developer if there's any monies remaining at the end.
And if it comes up short?
It shouldn't come up short. So we ask for, so if there's any shortfall, or, we generally don't run it, below the amount. We always, so we ask the developer to put additional funds into it. One of the things that we require for anything that goes through the planning board for a special permit or site plan review, one of the conditions we require is a final inspection, and so they have to provide as-built plans to the town, and then Fuss and O'Neill will go out. So one of the conditions in the decision typically is to require them to replenish the review and inspections account, so that everything is current, and then we have the funds available for those final inspections.
Okay, so then we can back up a little bit. What's this 33,295 for?
So.
Other purchased services.
So that includes the annual fee for the subscription fee for the permitting service. I don't have the exact number, but it's approximately $23,000 per year. That includes storage of all the on the system, updates, any changes that we need to make to the documents or to the forms that we're submitting. So that's what a lot of that covers. And then the other purchase services also covers for our recording secretaries and other major line items, or any other major costs, I should say.
Just to add on, the costs associated with the purchase of the system, we have submitted the funding through the CARES Act. The obvious goal is to keep people at home, out of town hall, out of gathering with each other, with the staff, the public. I know some communities have had success with that.
That's one of those, we'll wait and see what happens.
Exactly.
The plumbing inspector and the wiring inspector have salary items. Are they paid on a per diem basis as they work, or are they paid, I guess I should ask Meg, is this money paid to them on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, Meg?
Well, payroll's bi-weekly, so it would be bi-weekly, and,
So the plumbing inspector and the wiring inspector are on the payroll?
it's basically, they're payroll, they're not consultants or anything or contractors. They're salary, they're payroll, and they're basically salaried, paid bi-weekly.
And since you would know, and I think this is unjust to the planning department, I think it's unfair, because you'd know much better than we do, and it's not shown here what the income side of planning is. What what money is brought in from permitting fees, electrical fees, plumbing fees. So when we look at these expenses, we don't see anything to offset those expenses, and the public could actually assume this is all coming out of their tax base, when in fact it really may not be. It may be not self-funded, but there may be a lot of money coming back in developmental costs and permits to the town to offset these charges. Did I say that right?
You did, I know.
I mean, I would just be careful of wording it that way, though, because, I mean, because that's when departments start to think, well, this is, my pot of money, I should be able to.
No, I'm not alluding to that at all, but I'm saying that there is a flip side to this coin.
Yeah, but I guess in the treasurer collector's office, they bring in the most money in the town. So, I mean, I think what you have to look at it is it costs X amount of money to run a town. And then how do we offset that? It's with a pot of money, taxes, receipts, state aid, all of that. So I'm a little bit cautious of putting it into those terms, I think.
I understand, and I agree with what you're saying, but my point in bringing it up that way is that everybody sees the development that goes on in the town, and they see the new stuff that's happening. So they assume that, the solar projects and so forth and so on, these all come with permitting costs. So maybe it's a little more helpful to understand that there is an income side. We all know the assessors have an income side of things because we all write that tax check. We all write the excise tax check. We know there's a meals tax to the town because we eat in town, and we all pay a sales tax when we order a meal. But I think that the PEP department may be somewhat overlooked, if you will. I think that, as a member of the Conservation Commission, I understand that an NOI is $70. I get it, but that's based on the cost of the project. That's on a sliding scale. So I don't think people are really aware of all of that. And nor do we have to get into the weeds with it, but I think that it's important that the public understand that the PEP department is, while not self-sufficient like the EMS, it does have some income that offsets their expenses somewhat, similar to what I was thinking. Now, I did not know that Fuss and O'Neill comes out of a different account. Meg had said it doesn't cost the town money, and I didn't follow up to find out what she was talking about, so.
I would just say you're right on the mark. Some of the concerns that come up with a revolving fund, because I know some towns have a revolving fund that almost fund their entire department, but that revolving fund is based upon fees. And just like the old days when your plumbing and wiring inspector would get paid a portion of their fees, one could argue that it was in the interests of the departments to need a lot of re-inspections, because that would drive fees. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in terms of looking to fund a department like that. But I know that's not what you're suggesting. I know.
No.
But but it is true. They do generate revenue to the town.
Right.
There's no question about that. And so it's not
Which
just
helps to
output.
offset.
Right.
Granted, the revenue they generate goes into the general fund, and it all goes into the big pot. And out of the pot comes the department costs and so forth and so on, so that everybody benefits from that pot. But it's not strictly a negative cost item. There is some benefit to those departments.
Right.
Meg, does the software we use in accounting have the general ledger broken out for the revenue sources, so that you could do a P&L by department or cost center?
I think I missed a little bit of that, the volume.
So in the general ledger, do you break out the revenue from where it's coming from? So could you carve out the revenue coming from the PEP department and have it in P&L?
So all revenues, all expenses, there's the UMIS chart of accounts, which breaks down various segments, and one of the segments is the department.
Mm-hmm.
So an expenditure account or a revenue account is going to be tied to a department.
That's great.
So if you, like, with the monthly reports that I send out, which I should be sending out shortly, so you'll be able to see it, if you go into the general fund revenue summary, you'll see all the licenses and permits. And the way I run it is I run it by category, how it ties back to the tax rate recap. I could run that report and sort it by department and then compare to their budget. So you could see that.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering if they ever wanted to see like their own budget responsibility report or a P&L, could they do that? I just wasn't sure if you guys had the capability to do that. But it sounds like you could.
Yes.
If you really wanted to know.
I think there'll be an email request tomorrow.
Jim, I had a quick question. Elected salaries, is that planning board and board of health?
Right, so there's planning board, conservation commission, board of health. I think we also cover RDA under our budget.
Zoning?
Zoning board.
Do they all get compensated?
Zoning
I don't
gets
think
a
the zoning-
stipend.
Yeah.
Zoning gets a small
Yes,
stipend.
planning and conservation get the same stipends as posed by us.
Board
RDA
of
gets a
Health.
small stipend, yeah.
Board of Health gets a small stipend.
What are we missing? So redevelopment authority, and then,
Now, RDA surprises me that anything that has to do with the RDA comes out of anything to do with the planning department, because they have their own checkbook. So why
That's correct, yeah.
is that coming out of this when they have their own checkbook? And if you listen to some of their meetings, they act like they're their own country. So why are we footing the bill on one side of things?
They're a state committee, too.
Well, so why is the PEP department paying the stipend when RDA has their own checkbook?
yeah, I'll have to double check on that too. Sometimes,
Meg, do you know if is RDA coming out of the PEP department?
I'm looking at that right now. Hold on.
Then
It would only be stipends, that would be the only thing.
Yeah, and that's too much as far as I'm concerned.
I think once upon a time, they actually
Is
had
it
a small budget.
Because of an ethical reason?
Hold on, ugh, so close.
They're elected, they're a state
Yeah.
board, and they
Yeah,
have their own income, they have their own treasurer, they have their own checking account.
But the
And
stipend is like a resident of the
The
town.
stipend is, thank you, here's what we're giving you for taking your time to do this job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not
The
the
sti-
case.
We do
But
pay
they're
the
like a
stipends.
resident
The
of the
town does
town.
pay their stipends.
How much is it?
$900.
How much?
900.
And that's with a full board?
yeah, that's for the full board. So they're 150 each for everyone but the chair. The chair gets $300.
Would you look into that, Mr. Town Administrator?
I will,
I would like to see that come out of PEP and go into by itself, and there's 900 toward the,
I will speak to the chair within the next day or two, I promise you. See
Thank
what-
you, sir.
See what her thoughts are on the
oh,
subject.
I know what her thoughts will be. That's why I didn't offer to talk to her on your behalf.
My next question,
Starting more trouble.
the health agent, is that a full-time job?
That's a part-time
Part-time.
position.
It is
Kevin-
part-time.
Kevin Forge?
Yeah, I knew it was Kevin, I
Yeah,
just
it's
didn't know. if it-
part-time.
But the number wasn't high enough, that's why.
Right, so, and then he gets an additional 4 hours that's paid per week, that's paid through the select board's office. So
Okay.
it's-
Right.
Yeah, the number wasn't high enough, which is what prompted the question.
Yeah.
Can't get a full-time health agent for that. And then, this is sort of off topic, but the inspection hours for the building, alternate inspector, and the plumbing, gas, and wiring inspectors, just, what are those hours? And are they set hours, or are they determined by the individual inspector? Are they during normal business hours? Are they only one day a week? Like, how does that work?
So, our electrical and plumbing, they're in, generally it's 3 times a week. So, and they work offset days, but they're totally separate, separate from each other. They go out and do their own inspections. So a lot of times they'll get a call, and then during normal business hours, they'll go out and do their inspections. Or with certain situations with COVID, the state licensing board allows them to get, pictures or other evidence of interior work, to complete the inspections. But it's usually through their license, the homeowner or business owner's licensed electrician or plumber, where they're getting photographs from. So they have another license to rely on.
Okay. Now, is the amount of time that they're asked to spend working on behalf of the town of Carver, is that, so I really have 2 questions. Is that essentially your decision, or is it theirs? And then on top of it, do you feel as though it's sufficient?
So in the case of the inspectors, I don't really make the decision. It's kind of based on what they've been doing. And then with the local inspector, it's based on, kind of the number of inspections being requested. So if there's a night, and he works full-time for the town of Falmouth, and he's doing these in the evening for the town of Carver. And so what he does is, they'll kind of get calls in for inspections, and then they'll try to create a slate of inspections for him to go through at night. And there's some cases where, maybe there's one or two or three, maybe three inspections. They say, okay, well, it's not worth it for him to come in for those inspections. So that's usually the office staff that is coordinating that on behalf of the local inspector.
And in your opinion, do you think the way it's currently functioning is sufficient?
So that kind of goes into the kind of a discussion about having, kind of a full-time building commissioner. I'm not sure, are you ready to delve into that?
I'm sure we'll get into that.
Well, there's no doubt
When you're
we
ready.
have a need for one. I think
No
everybody
doubt,
on
yes.
this committee would agree we have a need for a full-time building commissioner.
Yeah, I think, I know I'm beating around the bush a little bit, but I'm asking these questions with an intent. And, as somebody who recently went through the process of utilizing the office, what I would describe as a significant amount, I not only built the house, I also put in a swimming pool. So, thank God. So, as somebody who went through the process and utilized the office, not personally, but the individuals that I employed utilized the office considerably, I have some experience and probably know enough to be dangerous and make a lot of, unfair comments. But it's something that as a citizen or a resident in the town, it's concerning when you requested an inspection on a Thursday and the following Tuesday, nobody's been out yet to do that inspection. And quite often, when I was on site to witness the inspections, it was done, 5, 6 o'clock at night after hours. Which, I understand when you only have 3 inspections and inspectors are relying upon multiple municipalities or multiple towns or multiple jobs to pay their salaries and whatnot. I sort of get it. But at the same time, it does create a lot of unnecessary inefficiencies, I think, in that whole process. And, it does affect families and it does affect residents and it affects taxpayers pretty adversely. When they can't, in the middle of a summer, they can't backfill their swimming pool to eventually put water in it and swim in it because it took a week to get a footing inspection. These sorts of things. So that's sort of where I'm going with the question. And I'm sort of curious as the director, I was curious as to what your thoughts were on how it's working and whether it's sufficient. It's just, as a bystander, we might reach certain conclusions that are unfair because we're not in your shoes and we're not in the shoes of the inspector. And we
Right.
don't understand how it all works. So I think this dialogue's helpful.
Right. And I think honestly, we're trying to make do with the best of the, the situation that we have. But that was one of the things that Mr. Jermaine asked me last year when I was here before the committee, and I said, I really think we need a full-time building commissioner that could handle zoning issues as well as dealing with, be able to get out, do inspections, during the daytime when people are in town or their contractors are available versus trying to do it at night, I think our local inspector does a really good job, but he's doing the best he can given, the situation that we're in with that, with what we have, We did try to fill the position with another individual, but we just didn't find anyone really qualified to do the job. And that's kind of one of the challenges that are, it's kind of plaguing
Being polite, Jim. There's a hardship. We need, one of the things that wasn't even mentioned is zoning enforcement. A focus on building, and I know you raise a very good scenario, but, Jim's doing zoning enforcement. He's not doing his own job because we don't have that person, that professional doing zoning enforcement. We've had a couple significant issues, problems for getting the, in addition to the day-to-day stuff, and that's taken a lot of time and energy out of Jim's, time, where he's supposed to be doing his job. So there's a gap. There's a significant gap here. Right now, we have funds for a part-time inspector, funds for an alternate inspector. I'm not sure alternate is what the name.
Interim building inspector.
Okay, so we have about I think, $50,000 tied up in those positions.
46,878 in the budget. I happen to add those up,
Okay.
because I know where you're.
Making me look bad, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry?
Making me look bad here?
No, not at all.
Well, earlier today,
Yeah,
we
well-
ballparked it at 50,000.
Sure. Well, I think this leads to the next discussion, if I don't want to, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Sometime, a couple of months ago, we did do an analysis. We had a consultant in to do an analysis of the department administratively, and from a management standpoint. And, the conclusion was essentially that we need a full-time building commissioner. Again, not something we didn't know.
No,
But it's
just
good
for
to have-
definition purposes, so that everybody
Yeah.
understands. That's different than a building inspector.
Correct.
A building
correct.
inspector, correct me if I'm wrong now, a building inspector cannot sign off on a building project. It has to be the commissioner that signs. There's a license that comes with the
That
commissioner.
is correct. That
Am
is
I?
correct. You are correct, yes.
And it's state mandated that we need to have a commissioner, not an inspector, so that,
Right, you can have an inspector, but
But we
that
have to have a
inspector
commissioner
works
besides.
essentially works under the guidance of the commissioner.
so it's like having a master's license versus a journeyman's
Sure,
license.
right. So one of the recommendations was that we could move some personnel around down there, and we didn't necessarily need one of the full-time staff. That presents the opportunity to move staff from one area to another area. Now, one of the factors that we had discussed, and I know I discussed with the chairman too, is, to what extent are we going to be prepared on July 1 to hire a building commissioner? Well, we're not. It's going to take time to do a recruitment. Are we going to be prepared on July 1 to simply eliminate a position or move that person into other roles? What type of a transition should we have from the current office staffing to a new model, instead of all happening on day one? And we haven't had any in-depth conversation about that, and I think that may be an issue that we bring back to this board at your next meeting and not necessarily ask for a vote tonight, because that really is the issue of the day. The question isn't whether we need a building commissioner. That's not the question at all. The question is, do we fund it from the existing budget, which really was my intent initially. However, there are these transitional, concerns that we need to be cognizant of because of the timing. And to some extent, you also want to let whoever we hire to provide his or her own feedback to us with regard to staffing. So, although I've had it in my head how we want to reshape this, and I think that's probably still the long-term goal, I think we have to be cautious about that in the shorter term. I know that's not helping you an awful lot
I
tonight.
think that's a very smart move.
Yeah. So,
Because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the new commissioner is going to want. And to try to pull this from within the department by eliminating something, only to find out that the new guy comes in and 3 months later says, listen, I gotta have some staff here. Now we're right back where we are right now, and we've lost the person that we potentially could have lost, the person that was very good in that department to start with.
Right.
So
Right, I think
I'd
that
rather see us transition into a new
slowly,
guy,
right.
and then,
Could be a woman.
Or gal.
well, excuse me, a new individual,
I know what you
and
want.
then we could, then see where the department goes at that point.
Right, I mean, I still have some level of optimism that perhaps during next fiscal year at some time, we might be able to move some of those human resources, because, the opportunity here isn't to lay someone off. The opportunity is to fill some of the gaps we
That's right.
have with our current staff. So whether or not that becomes possible or feasible, I think we need a little more time to figure that out. But I think it's important that, like a lot of things, it's nice if we're kind of all on the same page. We don't want to be fighting at town meeting, or we don't want, people pointing fingers and said, I told you so, or that's, I'm a kind of a believer that it's nice when we're kind of all in it together.
I think that's a great idea. I think that this is something that, I hate to see us just reinvent a department from an angle of budgetary restraint when it could be better thought out.
In this
You know, This is a
model,
very unusual year as far as
Yes,
as
yes,
budgets are concerned. I think that we have more constraints this year than we've had in the past, and, you know,
right, and obviously any deviation from the current budget will require some, Meg and I poring over where we stand, and, you know, as you've heard, Meg's tight with $1,000. She's tighter with $1,200.
I know.
So, that's a compliment, Meg.
I know, she does a great job.
Yes.
And I think, I
It's
have
a
no doubt in
compliment.
my mind that
Sure.
we
So
can
I think
find a
looking
way.
forward to maybe that at your next meeting, having us put something in front of you that's more concrete for your
I'd like
consideration.
if anyone has any questions, that's fine. I'd like a motion to table this department to March 1st. So that's going to be my intent for tonight, is that we hold off on taking any action on this department until March 1st.
Sure. Can I just ask a question?
You'll have some more concrete information by then. Yes, you may.
Okay, so I just had two questions. One was on the VNA and one's on the lab fees.
Okay.
Are the lab
That's
fees
all
for your
part of
Board
the
of Health?
Oh,
But what
Department of
was
Health under PEP.
So your VNA expenses, that's probably just a monthly amount, right, with the contract you hold?
Yes, I'm going to answer on behalf of Kevin.
Okay, so then what would the lab fees be for?
They'd be testings for
For the,
wells,
for the
things like
ponds,
that. Yeah,
and then also.
public ponds, yeah.
Oh, so it's not related to the
Yeah.
VNA then?
No,
Okay.
no.
No, just as the line below the VNA. But it's
Yeah.
a perfectly good
It's a good
question, because I
question.
looked at it and immediately thought it was blood tests and stuff like that, so.
Is the VNA reimbursable through
They don't
CARES
do
Act?
blood test?
The amount that we are spending for additional services for, contact tracing and such, those are reimbursable. We are submitting those.
Yeah, so every town holds a contract with the VNA, and the way it works is that the town, that VNA is responsible for the town patients that might have TB or COVID because it's a pandemic. And then they usually cover like a blood pressure clinic or something else, but anything that would go over that you might see,
Yeah.
then you'd have to pay them additional money.
Right, there's no way they'd be doing what they're doing for what their contract is. It's-
Exactly.
Yeah, no way, but those are being submitted, Adam.
Cool. Any other questions? Pat, any questions?
No further questions.
All right, if we're all done discussing and there's no other questions, can we have a motion to table this until March 1st meeting?
Sure, I make a motion to table the PEP budgets until the March 1st, 2021 meeting.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion to table the PEP budget to our March 1st, 2021 meeting. It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 7-0 to table. Okay, so we'll take up the rest. We'll have more concrete information
Yes.
for the first, takes a
Right.
little bit of the weight off. We can do the minutes. I sent them out, and I gave everybody a copy tonight. Kelly, as always, awesome job, they look terrific. Actually, a good compliment to you. Ashley, the new girl that's doing Conservation Commission, said you did a fabulous job on these minutes. And there was somebody else that complimented you doing it.
That was me. That was me.
Oh, was it? There was somebody else that complimented me on to pass it on to you on the minutes, and I said I would do that. Now I have to think of who it is.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes from February 10th, 2021,
As written.
as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from February 10th, 2021, as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So unanimous at 7-0 is the vote. I will pass along some information I have. Kevin Sullivan is thinking that he's not going to have enough time to stay with the committee. I've asked him to hang in there a little bit. I don't see that changing, and Pat Keneally is going to fireman school. So technically, he's still a member of the FinCom because he is not yet a member of, he's not yet an employee of the town. Barring, assuming everything goes well, and I'm sure it will with his training, he will become a town employee and then will have to resign from the FinCom. So, just so you know, you see those, they've been absent. So this is the reason for it. So.
Tell all your friends, we have space available.
We have 2 openings on the board as of right now. Is that right? 9? Yes, we have 9. So we have room for 11?
We don't have enough plexiglass for any more people, so.
Well, Kara's going to get us some more, don't worry. So we do have 2 openings. There are no topics 20 or 48 hours in advance. Our next meeting date is Monday, March 1st, 2021 at 7 o'clock. And committee member comments.
When are we meeting with the select board?
I don't know. How's that for a solid answer, huh? I have no idea. Nothing's been brought up. I'm assuming it will be sometime after March 1st, when we're going to come up with the finals on that, and before the 13th.
Yeah, we should really make
That's all I know.
every attempt to do it before the 13th.
So I noticed the capital outlay, we've wiped out the stipend.
We are going to, I'll bring that up
Okay.
in my comment in just a minute, if you excuse me just for 1 second. Don't reinvent the wheel.
I don't have anything else.
I just noticed it's 0.
Yeah, there's,
Anyone else's phone blowing up about the school committee right now? No. Yeah, I've got like 63 unmissed text. What's going on out there? Me too.
What I missed?
absolutely nothing.
Wow.
All right, nothing happened.
The question was brought up, Mr. Town Administrator, when are we meeting with the Select Board in a joint meeting? Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. The answer is, I don't know at this point. So I will be speaking to the chairman tomorrow. Do you have specific requests?
I do not.
Do you have
We have a March 1st meeting, assuming we can wrap up the entire budget at that time. You and I had discussed earlier, I think in the week, on a conversation, I know Monday, but I'm talking about end of last week, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We had discussed, since there seems to be a little dysfunction going on with capital outlay, that we would at least take up and discuss the capital budget.
On the 1st,
Which has
correct.
got to come to us anyway.
Yes.
Even if outlay does whatever they do, and then both of them got to go to the select board. So we would take up the capital budget and make that part of a select board recommendation, if you will. Assuming that we get that done all on March 1st, and there's no need for another meeting for the FinCom, which if there was, we could do anytime that week, or we could do it the 8th. We'd like to get the joint meeting done by the 13th, which still gives us 30 days from town meeting date. Now, that's not the requirement, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's
I will.
generally accepted practice to get it
Yeah.
done 30 days prior.
30 days prior.
So,
So we could meet with the select board on March 2nd, if that's a meeting of the
Right.
select board, if they want to do it that night, or we could do it on that Saturday, or,
I would-
anytime between March 2nd and the 13th.
okay. I will, I'm going to.
But the only
sug-
caveat is assuming we wrap everything up on the 1st.
Sure, well, I think perhaps it's looking at the 8th or the 9th, if people aren't inclined to look at a Saturday meeting.
I don't think there's a need for a Saturday
So.
meeting.
I will be out of town from the 7th to the 9th for work.
Oh,
I could zoom in, but
okay. We'll see what we can do.
it's part of the reason why I asked the question.
Sure.
It's
Okay.
very self-serving.
I
That's okay?
just saw that.
That's all right. We all do it once in a while.
When is the scheduled selectmen's meeting? Is it the 2nd or the 9th?
It's the first and the third, so,
So
however,
it'll be the
with
2nd.
with a 5 Tuesday month, they may be willing to simply change their schedule to a 2nd and 4th. That would be the most convenient.
Well, the 9th would be no
Yeah.
good for him. Well, you'd be home the night of the 9th, right?
Potentially. I'll be in Bangor, Maine working, so it'll depend on when I get to leave.
There's nothing in
I
Bangor.
was gonna say, my condolences.
Actually, I like Bangor, Maine.
If there's any way for him to be home, he'll do it.
Bangor is
love it
probably
up there.
beautiful and fantastic at any month except for
Mm-hmm.
February,
You gotta
but
go to Dysart and have fabulous seafood.
Well, okay.
Trapping's fantastic.
Is there anything that would keep the board from meeting on the 10th?
No.
Even if even if the select board maintains their normal schedule, that way, in the event there's any follow-up that's necessary after the 1st, that could be done on the 8th, and you wouldn't feel rushed on the 1st
Well,
to have to finish up.
it's provided, hold on. Yeah, Concom is the 1st and 3rd, so, yeah, the 10th should be okay. There shouldn't be a conflict there. Talk with the chairman and see what she
I'll
thinks.
shoot
There's
for
gonna
that.
be enough of us, and then you couple that with the select board members, and if we're gonna have a recording secretary, or if Elaine's gonna do it, and then you're there, and Meg is there, and by the time you add in the Fran and Fran for the recordings, if there's any questions for department heads, I don't see how it can be here. I think it has to be at the school, no matter
Sure.
when we do it.
I would agree, yes.
So I would not object to, and it's only, I don't have kids at home, so I would not object to a Saturday morning.
It's all right.
That may or may not work for the younger kids on the group that have, activities at home. That's a compliment. That have activities at home on a Saturday morning with the kids, So
Well,
we're very flexible, see what the
Very good.
pleasure of the select board is.
Okay.
We'll certainly, Sarah can reach out, I can work with her, and we'll figure it out.
all right.
I anticipate we'll wrap this whole budget up on March 1st. It may run a little later than we'd like it to, but we
Sure.
should wrap it up.
Right. But if not, at least little buffer. I'm personally liking the 10th, but that's just me. So we'll,
I'm liking the 10th too. I think
As long as-
that's very workable.
there's no way we're letting Adam off the
Because it
hook.
still gives us 3 days. If we can't do the 10th, then there's the 11th, and there's the 12th, and then there's that Saturday morning, and we're still within the 30 days. So there's some room. And you need to get back to some normal people if you're coming back from Bangor.
we have to quarantine for 14 days, let's see.
I'm
I
sorry?
know, I was just
May have to
thinking that,
Quarantine for 14 days, we'll see.
I should get a test, right?
Corona's not allowed in Bangor.
I'm not allowed in Maine.
This is when we all be very careful about what we say.
Oh, I love Bangor.
That's right, yeah.
If Gene could take the cold, I'd be north of Bangor.
I suspect she wouldn't, no.
You know who's
See
got
you
it
see you on
made?
the holidays, husband.
Bill Duggan, who I miss on this
Yeah,
committee,
yeah.
is his backyard. You could throw a stone and just about hit New Brunswick. You can't get much farther north.
Wow.
Right off the grid. So, okay. So that's it. My comment was gonna be capital outlay. Anybody else? Pat?
I'm good, Alan, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second. Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are out. Thank you very much.